Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness performs live at the Fillmore in Silver Spring, Maryland tomorrow night. I spoke to McMahon about his latest project, as well as his previous bands Something Corporate and Jack's Mannequin, and his inspirational cancer documentary Dear Jack about his own battle against leukemia. Hey, Andrew McMahon. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in Washington, D.C.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we are talking because you are coming to the Fillmore in Silver Spring on Tuesday, November 21st. So really soon, folks, you got to, hop on, get your tickets right now and come see it. Now, so when you do this is, under the Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, label. You've had many labels over the years, but do you ever work in, a couple Something Corporates, some Jack Mannequin stuff, or is it mostly like, I'm just going to do the new Andrew McMahon Wilderness album, Tilted the Wind No More? Like, is it mostly like the album start to finish, or do you sprinkle in the other incarnations?
Well, it's a pretty long set. We play usually anywhere from 90 minutes to an hour and 45. And yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, obviously we're working a new record. So I play a bunch of new tunes in the process, and some older Wilderness tunes as well. But yeah, on any given night, I'd say 30 to 40% of the set is stuff from my previous projects as well.
Awesome. I love it. And how rewarding has that new album been, Tilted the Wind No More? I mean, are you getting good reactions to it live when you play it?
Yeah, the vibe's been really good. It's like it's always scary to put out new music, and it has been ever since I started doing it 20 plus years ago. Yeah. I think it gets a little more daunting the more big records that kind of collect in the wake of whatever I'm working at the moment. But I'll say, man, I'm so proud of this record. I think, like the other day, we were kind of working stuff up in rehearsals, and so it was just like kind of on my phone when I got in my car, and I just kind of like listened to it for the first time since kind of putting it out.
Yeah,
and I'm so proud of it, and I've been really excited to see the reaction that it's gotten from fans, and it's the show is a really great place for us to kind of educate people who maybe don't have the record. We don't beat them over the head with it. We kind of spread the new songs around in the mix of other hits or bigger tunes as well. But no, it's been going really well.
Oh, I love it. Well, when I have someone like, like famous like yourself on after we set the stage of the new show and everything, I love to sort of like hit pause and kind of move somewhat chronologically, because your songs are like so autobiographical that it kind of works to kind of paint the picture of, the whole journey as well. Like, so I know you're born in Massachusetts in 82, but your family moved around a lot, right? Like Jersey, Ohio, ultimately settled in California. But like, what sort of like music did you listen to growing up? I know you taught yourself piano, but yeah, like what was like the early vibes for you?
When I was like a little kid, I mean, it was, Michael Jackson and Simon and Garfunkel and Bon Jovi. As I got a little bit older, it was a lot of the stuff that my brothers and sisters were listening to. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So
yeah.
REM and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and U2, like those were kind of, the big records in my house. Fleetwood Mac, my parents' music, Elton John and Billy Joel. And, I think as I started writing songs when I was 9, and so I kind of leaned on the great piano players early on. It was like, and Bruce Hornsby was really big at the time. And, but I'd say eventually as I started like finding my music, it was, bands like, Pearl Jam, and then it was the Counting Crows and Sheryl Crow, and like kind of some of the more like coffee shop indie music of like the early 90s. It just grew from there. Bands like Ben Folds and Ben Folds 5 and Weezer, were sort of the ones that started creeping. Radiohead, as I got into my teen years and stuff.
I love it. Always love hearing the influences of, where the great artists like yourself, because you're a musical genius. My wife agrees. She actually got me into your music. But all right. So from there, then take me into, the formation and the Something Corporate, the original sort of iteration of your music. Like that was, didn't you guys all meet in high school or something? Because I know you went on to do Warped Tour and Newfound Glory. I think you toured with them. But like, how did that actually come together? I think you all met like in high school, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I've been writing songs, ever since I was a little kid, and there wasn't really a huge outlet for like, being a songwriter when you're in, 11, 12, 13 years old. There was no, there was no internet, there was no social media. It was like, I would sing in the drama room at school, like that, like so I would kind of hung with like some of the theater kids, was sort of like where I would get that itch scratched, so to speak. And then there was a battle of the bands went up my sophomore year of high school. And I was like, oh well shit, maybe I can start a band. And so I the first iteration of Something Corporate began my sophomore year of high school, then sort of reformed with a new guitar players coming in, one of them being Josh, who's kind of the co-founder of Something Corporate with me. And yeah, so we reformed in my junior year for another battle of the bands. And that was that. Like, people really took a liking to the music in our school. And then, we had, one of the guys was from a neighboring school. So we kind of had this way into a lot of like the local Orange County high schools, because we knew people everywhere. So we started playing, lunch hours in the cafeteria. We play the cafeteria, or we play at the middle school. We do a show at a church. And it just, by the time we got to like the end of my senior year, the band had gotten pretty big, and we were signed the following year after I graduated.
That's so awesome. Awesome. Well, then, of course, but the thing that I and most of us will know you for, then, of course, is your next, iteration is Jack's Mannequin. That was, I guess, started in like 2004, I think.
That's right.
Memories of Everything in Transit was like a seminal album for so much of, our generation. Dark Blue was like probably the most famous one that you maybe have, would be played around radio or something. But then there was other one, like Holiday from Real, few songs can transport you, like you're on Venice Beach, like I can just see, you know what I mean, like it's a transporter type song. It sort of sets the time, it's a time and a place. But yeah, just memories of putting that whole album together, Everything in Transit, because it means so much to so many people, like that generation. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, it means a lot to me too. It was really sort of accidental at first. The band, but my Something Corporate bandmates and I, we were all kind of burnt out. We had made, 3 records in, I want to say, less than 3 years. Had been on the road any moment that we weren't in the recording studio. And we just kind of got to the point where like, love you, but like, let's not see each other for a minute, let's just take a minute. Josh he was first to kind of go like, I'm going to start another project and just like do a little side project. And so I found myself sort of, as I was writing new music, not knowing what I was going to do with it. Like if I was going to hang on to it and wait for another Something Corporate record. And so I started by just kind of going to the studio where I recorded all the Something Corporate records with the same producer, and just started to like demo my new music, and there was something like very freeing about being, only a couple guys in a studio, just really having only whatever was available there. Like, so, we didn't have a drummer. So we would like pick up, we'd pull reels off the shelf and just like, and just dump drum sessions from other records into a Pro Tools session and cut the drums up so that they worked as the beat, for the demo. And then the demo started kind of sounding really good. It was just like we did one and it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It sounds super different. And by the time I was like a few songs into it, it was like, wow, this like feels like something, it sounds fresh. It sounds like something I haven't done before. It sounds like whatever the music is in my head, what it's supposed to sound like. And I just kind of never looked back. I just drained my bank account recording these songs, and it was like I was kind of going through the breakup with the band. I was going through a breakup with my girlfriend. I was young and like
sleeping on floors, rent's high.
Yeah, I mean, sort of, like I actually like I spent all the Something Corporate money that I had and bought like a little condo and moved all my friends into this house with me. So we had this kind of like this kind of
Yeah.
party house that we called Good Times. And
Love
you
it.
know, and I had this immense amount of freedom and a lot of time to just sit at the piano. And I would live, write, run to the studio, and I rinse, repeat, you know, and
Yeah.
that's how I got to that record.
Oh, I love hearing the behind the scenes. It's a great record.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
just mostly for the sake of time and a personal story I'm going to share, cancer related. I'm going to sort of combine Glass Passenger and the Dear Jack whole documentary and everything. My wife had a friend that asked her to sing "Spinning," your song "Spinning" from Glass Passenger at their wedding, because that was apparently their Jack's Mannequin song that got her friend through cancer.
Yeah.
Then fast forward to about this time last year, actually, my wife got diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry to
And
hear that, man.
while we were, thank you, while we were waiting to, we figure out whatever staging it was, we had a Johns Hopkins appointment coming up. This friend that had asked her to sing "Spinning" sent a DVD of your documentary, Dear Jack, to us. And it really, I don't even want to just say inspirational, it was motivational. Like, it was like, okay, we watched you roll your sleeves up and get through leukemia, and sort of motivated my wife to sort of do the same. So, and thank you on a personal note for that.
Yeah, man.
In
Thank you.
terms of the interview, I mean, is it so important for you to document all of your treatments? And I guess, didn't you have a sister that like donated plasma? Like, it's such a heartbreaking but also inspiring story. Like, yeah, why was it important to document it?
Honestly, the idea to document it wasn't really, it was really born of the fact that I was already documenting everything. So
Right.
I early on, when my girlfriend, now my wife, but when we had sort of gone through this breakup, um, and I had gone out and bought like a little handy cam.
Yep.
Um, and so it became this ritual because I didn't have her in my life. I sort of was like telling my life to this camera. And so I was filming the recording of Transit. I was filming sort of like the last tours on the road with something corporate. I was filming the formation of the band and us going on out as Jack's Mannequin for the first time. I just had this thing, and I was like, I had this instinct well ahead of being diagnosed to just capture whatever this moment was. It felt like it was important, and it was also like it gave me some place to download the day. It was like kind of like an early sort of video blog kind of diary thing.
Right. Right.
Um and then when I got sick, I had gotten just so familiar and so comfortable talking to the camera and documenting my day that I just kept doing, you know. And it wasn't really until much later when a friend of mine who had visited me in the hospital called me as I was kind of on the mend, and he was like, you know, I noticed you were filming when you were in the hospital. Did you record all of that? And I was like, well, a lot of it. And that began the conversation about, well, can I see the tapes, and can I do an edit and just sort of try and see what it's like to put this together, and yeah, and that's kind of how the documentary came to be.
So that's good to know. So yeah, obviously it wasn't a planned documentary. It was more like
Mhm.
Dear Diary video blog,
Yeah,
just
all of it was, I filmed the whole thing myself. You
yeah.
know, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
you know, other than the interviews and sort of, you know, some of the B-roll that got captured to kind of tie things together. It was really just snapshots of that year and a half or so,
Yeah.
off of my handheld camera, my
Oh,
DV cam.
well, I just think, I mean, I'm sure it was extra powerful for all the fans you already had, but then it probably introduced so many other people to your music too, because that maybe heard of Jack's Mannequin, but once they're going through their own cancer struggle, that
Right.
it brought more fans in. But have you heard any? I mean, I shared how it touched my family, but yeah, have you heard of tons of? I'm sure you get feedback almost every day of people on Instagram or emailing you saying, "Wow, you helped get me through." Do you get all? Is that all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just being a public figure who speaks candidly about,
Yeah.
you know, a pretty difficult experience. There there ends up being, like, I think, a deeper connection with fans or people that find their way to the music, and then, you know, find out more about my story. And I think, more than anything now, it's like people who were kids when I was starting out and were in my corner when I got sick, when they inevitably find out somebody in their life or they are going through this thing, I become a touchstone in that conversation because they've sort of gone through it with me, and certainly through the foundation that we started on the heels of my recovery. I spend a lot of time talking to patients and survivors and people that we deal with on a daily basis through the foundation.
It's just great. When you look back, you're gonna think about all the lives you've touched with your music and your real life, putting your real life out there. It's amazing.
Thanks, man.
All right. Well, then, I kind of said it. Your story is and your music's so autobiographical. They kind of go hand in hand. So, like, there's something corporate, or maybe even the Jack's Mannequin of, Holiday from Rio kind of is like sort of, I've imagined us all like younger. And then it's like going through really heavy stuff, life and death, cancer, diagnosis stuff, Dear Jack. But then by the time, you do People and Things, but then by the time you do Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness in 2014, that first album titled that, now you're kind of talking about becoming a father, and it's Cecilia and the Satellite. Arguably your biggest hit is I think you wrote it for your daughter, right? Talk about sort of how that came about.
Well, look, I think coming out of Jack's Mannequin, I was just like, I wasn't sure what was going to be next. I kind of knew I would rep my own name to some extent because I wanted to build a sort of, a bigger tent for all of this music, right. So that people knew, well, like if I go to see his show, I'm going to see new songs, but I'm going to see something corporate songs. I'm going to see Jack's Mannequin songs. And I was really trying to figure out what the next thing was. And I did a lot of that by, through collaboration with tons of other writers and producers and really just trying to find what the next sound was. And look, really like what was the thing that was going to motivate me to fire up a third sort of brand and version of my career, and so it was a lot of trial and error. I mean, I think I spent a year in and out of various different studios and writing rooms and meeting with people. And then finally kind of hit my stride with a couple of producers, a guy named James Flanagan, another guy named Mike Viola. And together we sort of wrote and recorded that first album and stumbled into Cecilia and the Satellite, which, it was a couple weeks before my wife was due. And just sort of found myself asking these questions, like, what is it that I'm really like, what would be the most important thing to sort of share with my kid, my unborn kid at that point, and it really, I think the reason it hit with people is because it's not really so much about her as it is about this idea of like wanting to care for somebody and to share, my struggles and my successes and all the things that led up to meeting her, and say like, but I'm going to be there for you, and so there was this unintentionally broad message baked into it that I think applies to just like love in general, and this idea of like really wanting to look out for somebody, and kind of get them through whatever it is their life is going to deal them.
Yeah, man, it's there've been many throughout history, great songs by people writing to their unborn, almost about to be child. I mean, some of the greatest songs ever. I think Jim Croce had some. I mean, it goes all the way back. But yeah, it's such a sweet song. All right. Well, I mean, is there, as we're sort of bringing it, we're almost full circle now then, because we hit Tilt at the Wind No More at the top of the interview, but anything else you want to say about, Zombies on Broadway had Fire Escape, Upside Down Flowers, I guess is the third under the Wilderness title, and now Tilt at the Wind No More is your fourth. What, if people are, let's phrase it this way, if people are coming out to the show in Silver Spring on Tuesday, what from that post Cecilia and Satellite era between now and then, where should maybe a new listener drop in? Like, do you have a personal be like, check this one out? This is like my hidden gem in here.
I'm always, if you don't know my music, listen to the newest record first. I think there's, I think we're all guilty of this, which is like when we discover a band, we tend to, whatever, the record we discover them on, that's the record. You know what I mean? Like right. And I have to work with that because I know that I'm going to always have fans who are going to be like, no matter what I do, it's going to be like, well, first record I heard was Leaving Through the Window. So Leaving Through the Window is my record.
Yeah.
You know, for you, it was Everything in Transit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I took note of when you're like, and arguably you're most known for Jack's Mannequin. You asked a Something Corporate fan that, they're like, wait, what?
Right.
Or you asked somebody who got on board when they heard Cecilia and the Satellite for the first time. They're like, wait a minute, what? So
Exactly.
you know, and so to me, it's like, listen to the new record. I really do think it's some of my best work. And I think, you know, if you find stuff that you connect with in there, then go listen to the hits, you know, like go on the playlist that says like, you know, this is whoever, like this is, you know, whatever. And then, you know, that's how I, you know, like that's how I got into like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I got the greatest hits and I was like, wow, I love this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to check out Damn the Torpedoes. And then it was like Wildflowers came out and I was like, holy shit, this is my jam, you know? But you know, I think, look, I love pop music. And so I would argue like my most popular songs, you should listen to those first, you know, and find out if you agree, you know, and then go from there.
I love it. I guess final seconds, you know, how excited are you to come to Silver Spring, DC area? I mean, have you played our Fillmore before, or just in general? Like, do you always make a point to stop by the DC music scene?
Always. Yeah, no, I love DC. I mean, I've been coming for years. It's always one of the best stops on the tour. And we've done the Fillmore once before, I think. And I'm excited to get in there and do it again.
All right. Well, we're excited to come see you. Thanks for taking so much time to kind of go quickly, albeit, but through your whole career. I really appreciate it on a Sunday. Again, everyone, Andrew McMahon coming to the Fillmore in Silver Spring on Tuesday, November 21st. Come, like he's saying, come hear some Something Corporates, come hear some Jack's Mannequin, come hear Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness. It'll all be his most famous, depending when you drop in on it. Hey, I really appreciate it. I really do.
Thanks, man. And just, you know, just side note, just sending you and your wife, you know, positive vibes and thinking about you guys.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.